Most of the dragons that we see in House of the Dragon have either been bonded with their riders since birth or infancy, or were previously ridden by the key players' ancestors. Caraxes, Meleys, Dreamfire, and Vhagar all have storied histories, while Sunfire, Tessarion, and all the dragons belonging to Rhaenyra and Daemon's children are fairly new to the world. But all of them have one thing in common: experience with humans. The dragon we're discussing today, however, has never come into contact with humans. In fact, he's such an isolationist that people don't even believe he exists and have named him Grey Ghost accordingly. But he does, and he's one of the 3 wild dragons that Daemon Targaryen believed the Blacks could use to their advantage. In this video, we'll take a look at whether his assumption is correct by dissecting Grey Ghost's anatomy, so take this spoiler warning to heart and don't blame us for not telling you otherwise. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Birth and formative years, Grey Ghost, and wild dragons. The birth of dragons is rather different from regular animals and beasts. Check out our dragon egg anatomy video to learn more about why that's the case. But the long and short of it is that dragons were specifically bred by the Valyrian Freehold for war. These great winged beasts that breathe fire formed the core of the Freehold's power, and so having a steady supply of them at all times was crucial for dragon lords. In old Valyria, the dragon egg hatcheries were located within the 14 Flames most likely, or in the homes of the Dragon Lords, outside which rivers of magma flow. Hatching dragons must have been a piece of cake over there, considering the environment. The bigger problem would have been containment. Dragons are known to lay clutches of 3 up to 5 eggs at a time, and if all of them hatch, that's 5 hatchlings to 1 mother. Usually, the Dragon Lords would ensure the hatchlings bonded with their blood relatives, but the ratio of eggs to dragon riders must have always been skewed in the former's favor, which meant that some dragons went unclaimed for long periods of time. These dragons, due to remaining riderless for much of their life, would eventually go wild. Wild dragons are much harder to claim than regular dragons because the dragon bond is highly age-dependent. The Targaryens knew that the earlier the dragon bond was established, the sooner a dragon could be tamed. King Aegon's first son, Aenys, bonded with the hatchling Quicksilver and his daughter Rhaena with Dreamfire, and both dragons had amiable, people-friendly reputations. Jaehaerys and Alysane's dragons hatched in their cradles, and Vermithor and Silverwing grew up to be some of the most civil and human-friendly dragons of the Targaryen dynasty. Silverwing especially was so tame that she wouldn't participate in a free-for-all dragon brawl towards the final stages of the Civil War simply because her rider managed to sleep through it. Even if a dragon loses its original rider, the civility lingers, and taming them a second and a third time is a lot smoother than one would expect. Balerion was over 100 years old when Maegor the Cruel claimed him as a 20-plus-year-old, and yet they're never said to have struggled to bond. That's because the Black Dread had many riders before Maegor, and he'd have 2 more after him. But expecting the same kind of response from a wild dragon is folly. Wild dragons end up becoming so accustomed to human presence that their first reaction to it is claw and flame. But the Grey Ghost is different in that regard. Born on Dragonstone from an egg that was pale gray-white of morning mist, Grey Ghost took the opposite route in terms of aggression towards humans. He made his lair in a high-smoking vent on the east side of the Dragonmont, and it's likely that this isolation is what made him so shy in the first place. That he survived his infancy itself is a miracle, because many of the hatchlings and young dragons of Dragonstone are often cannibalized by the cannibal. It's possible that Grey Ghost escaped that terrible black menace and flew to his high vent, sticking to it ever since out of a sense of fear and self-preservation. He would rarely be seen venturing forth by the people of Dragonstone, but when he did, it would be difficult to spot him. This is because of Grey Ghost's coloring. Grey Ghost breed, how it camouflages itself, and why it only eats fish. George R. Martin likes to say that the coloring of his dragons has no functional use in his universe. The dragons are splendid beasts, and their color is nothing more than George's pen making them more fantasy than fantasy can ever seem. But sometimes he tends to give his dragons colors that work exceptionally well for apex predators like them. Take Balerion, for example. The Black Dread was the biggest dragon in the known world at the time of Aegon's conquest, and even beyond it. Entire towns could fit underneath the shadows of its wings, and yet it was black as the midnight sky. Flying him high at night would provide Aegon Targaryen with incredible cover, and he used this advantage to score his greatest victory. Balerion attacked Harrenhal in the black of night, and a combination of his scale color and the fact that he dive-bombed the joint from the stratosphere allowed Aegon to take the castle completely by surprise. Seasmoke, the dragon of Laenor Valyrian, was named for its coloring, which resembled the foggy clouds that hang over warm waters in the Arctic regions. Seasmoke was a pale silver gray, so if he were to fly through such a cloud, or through a column of smoke, he would vanish, making him hard to locate. Grey Ghost took this camouflaging concept one step further, and married it to his personality. Grey Ghost is described as being a pale gray-white. That's a much lighter coloring than Seasmoke's, whom we can see dazzling in the sky in Episode 3. Grey Ghost got its name from the fact that it could disguise itself in the clouds and mists that clung to Dragonstone. And if someone could establish a dragon bond with him, he'd be the greatest ambush dragon this side of Vhagar. Westeros's climate is described as being very similar to that of medieval Europe, with King's Landing weather being compared to London's by Martin himself. If there's one thing that we know about London, it's that when the fog rolls in, it rolls in thick, and infiltrating such a city with a dragon like Grey Ghost would be perfect. Moreover, this wild dragon is also described as being swift, which leads us to believe he's a speed-type drag. The Valyrians likely bred speed-type dragons as a replacement for horses, and also for a bit of dragon racing action. The added benefit of their vanity was that such dragons were ideal for ambushes, because their speed made them nearly unstoppable. Grey Ghost coloring also made him nearly undetectable, so combine those and you have the ideal covert assault weapon on your hands. It's just sad then that the weapon wants nothing to do with war, and uses its unique coloring to trick and catch fish. You heard us right, folks. The Grey Ghost is a filthy fish eater from Innsmouth. We're kidding, of course, but it's when he goes fishing that he's seen the most by the fisherfolk of Dragonstone. Grey Ghost had a habit of gliding over the cold waters of the narrow sea and nabbing fish from within its tides. We don't know why he preferred eating fish, but we can make a few guesses. If our assumption about his battle-aversive nature is correct, then it's possible that Grey Ghost's feeding habits evolved to go after non-threatening prey. Dragons are apex predators. They can pretty much kill and devour anything they want to. The only thing more powerful than a dragon is another dragon, and if the cannibal went after Grey Ghost when he was young, then it would make his eating habits and his shyness make a lot of sense. He suffered through a traumatic childhood event where he was chased after by a dragon that ate dragons. Of course, he stuck to fishing after that, but now that we've spoken of his odd eating habits and why he'd be the ideal stealth dragon, it's time to answer the big questions with regards to its anatomy. Is Grey Ghost bigger than Seasmoke? How fast is it? Since we compared Grey Ghost to Seasmoke, we'll keep that as our frame of reference because that's just easier for us to do. So when we compare the two dragons of Mist and Smoke, who's bigger and who's faster? Well, it's difficult to tell simply because of Grey Ghost's elusive nature. It's known that this dragon liked to elude the eyesight of men for years at a time. Now it's possible that Grey Ghost was just not spotted by the villagers of Dragonstone because of his unique coloring, but that contradicts what we hear from the fishermen, who say that he comes out to feed from the waters frequently. Either way, Grey Ghost could not have been much older than Seasmoke for two reasons. The first being that he lived past the life cycle of the dragons that the cannibal was known to feed on. It ate dragon eggs, hatchlings, and even young dragons, and the fact that Grey Ghost was big enough for people to make out his figure in the clouds means that he definitely lived past his youth. Seasmoke was a young dragon in 101 AC, so Grey Ghost could be as old as him, if not younger. The fact that it was able to hide itself in clouds and the morning mist means that it must not have been a huge dragon, and we know Seasmoke is fairly large in Season 2 of House of the Dragon. Grey Ghost's elusiveness could also be a result of its speed, for the first thing that a scared beast relies on is its speed, in order to effectively execute its flight response. Grey Ghost must have been pretty quick for its size and age, but we can't estimate exactly how fast in comparison to Seasmoke, and its small size and stature stature could be a result of its feeding habits as well. A dragon's growth is highly dependent on eating a lot of nutrient-rich food, and eating it frequently. But the fact that Grey Ghost left its lair in the morning mist and only ate fish must have stunted its growth to a certain degree, because as good as fish is, it has nothing on mutton, lamb, or beef. This throws another spanner into the age speculation, because an underfed dragon could be smaller than another that is younger than it. Sea Smoke was the pride and passion of the queen who never was and the richest lord in the Seven Kingdoms. No doubt he was fed well. So taking all that into consideration, we'd say the Grey Ghost was probably smaller and less quick than Sea Smoke, but it made up for that with its chameleon scales. Just imagining that Bela pursuit scene with this guy instead of Moondancer makes us frustrated in a way we can't explain. And that brings us to the final segment of this video. Will Grey Ghost get claimed? What happens to it during House of the Dragon? Everyone knows the sowing of the dragon seeds is on the way, and Grey Ghost is going to be up for grabs as much as any other dragon. In Fire and Blood, it was Prince Jacaerys who called for the sowing, and it looks like it might be Jace who calls for it in the show as well. But the question here is who will go for Grey Ghost, and will he ever be claimed? Well, for starters, the only people that will want to pursue Grey Ghost are those that know of its existence, and they're few and far between. Those that fish the waters around Dragonstone and live upon its banks or in barges will be aware of its existence. Sailors will be aware of its existence, and it will be a sailor that goes searching after him. Alan of Hull is content with being a man-at-arms for the Valyrian fleet, but it's thanks to that he will have seen Grey Ghost flying over the waters around Dragonstone and Driftmark. Alan is an extremely observant and practical man, so it isn't a stretch of the imagination to think he'd also notice Grey Ghost made its lair in the eastern side of the Dragonmont. We'll get to see Abubakar Salim break out of his signature scowl inside a volcano, and it's going to be glorious, but also deflating, because Grey Ghost will not be found. This dragon has built its reputation on being elusive and avoiding all works of men. If you think that it wouldn't fly out of its lair during a time period when it can sense that humans are coming and going out of the Dragonmont at an unprecedented rate, you don't understand how social anxiety works, my friend. Grey Ghost will sadly not be claimed by any dragon seed, but it does get involved in a dragon fight. This is a major spoiler depending on how you see the show, but at one point in the story, soon we imagine, Grey Ghost will be forced to defend itself against another cannibal. At the Battle of Rook's Rest, King Aegon Targaryen's dragon Sunfire sustained severe injuries. Meleys had bitten into his neck with her sword-long teeth and torn half of one of his wings. It would take Sunfire weeks to recuperate from that fight, but when he does, he vanishes from Rook's Rest. People don't hear about his existence for a long time, and Aegon is forced to assume that his dragon is dead, until he hears queer reports from the sailors aboard the Volantene trading vessel Nassaria. The ship had stopped to take on fresh supplies and conduct repairs due to a storm that blew them off course. But before they made anchor, they saw something even the residents of Dragonstone don't see every day: dragons fighting each other. The sailors saw a pale gray thing go up against a mighty dragon with golden scales, and soon after this story spread throughout the island, the body of the Grey Ghost was found at the base of the Dragonmont. It had been partially devoured and left broken in two, and there it would remain, rotting until the flesh disappeared and black bones remained. The dragon that killed Grey Ghost was Sunfire, of course, who, after his 6-month absence, had decided to return to his birthplace and kill a dragon while he was at it. Why Sunfire attacked Grey Ghost is a mystery. Perhaps he wanted to make its lair his own, and their battle was a territorial conflict. The sailors did report seeing the dragons high up in the Dragonmont, so it could be Sunfire intruded upon Grey Ghost's lair and caught him off guard. It could also be that he simply decided to feed on the smaller dragon because he needed to regain strength quickly. 6 months of recovery had allowed Sunfire to fly again, but his wing healed so awkwardly he'd have to put his entire body into staying aloft. If he came across Grey Ghost while he was putting his back into flying, it's possible he decided to have a snack. Whatever the true reason was, Sunfire emerged victorious, and so died the greatest potential spy dragon in the world. But Grey Ghost didn't go out without a fight. Before his death, he gave Sunfire wounds that put him closer to death's door than he ever was before. It took 3 dragons to fully break King Aegon's glory, but they did, and Grey Ghost played a part in that. His legacy will forever be that one dragon who weakened Sunfire just enough for Bela to have her badass moment. And if we're being honest, that's good enough. Marvelous verdict. But what isn't good enough is probably the fact that that's all we've got for you guys on this one. Grey Ghost is one of the dragons we're looking forward to seeing the most because his personality is just so relatable. But that's enough out of us. What about you guys? What do you think of his anatomy and wild dragons in general? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll see you soon in another video. Until then, do remember, history is written in fire and blood. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one. Be safe. Thanks, everyone.